Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Grade 7 students. I hope you are all well and I hope you are the best. Today, inshallah, we are going to start quarter 4 lessons with what is poetry and what are the figures of speech. As you know, poetry is a part of literature or as a branch, a type of literary works in English. So, what is poetry? This is our today's session or our today's lesson. So, I hope you are all paying attention to me when you watch this recorded session. What is poetry? Listen carefully and follow me. This is a presentation about what is poetry and what are the figures of speech in poetry and why do we feel that poetry is different from other types of literature in English. In the beginning, we will answer the question, what is poetry? So poetry is the language of imagination, is the language of feelings, of emotional self-expression, and it is the language of high art. We have many definitions for poetry because every poet or every author define poetry as he feels. As we said in the beginning, poetry is a kind of a language that has rhythm and rhyme and some figures of speech, and every one of the poets actually define the word poetry as he notices or as he feels. Okay, in poetry we have many figures of speech, and they are all the reasons why there is a big difference between poetry and other types of literature. Poems can contain simile, metaphor, personification, onomatopoeia, onomatopoeia, hyperbole, symbols, alliteration, assonance, and repetition. So these are all figures of speech that you can find in poetry while you work on. They can also rhyme. What does it mean, rhyme, Mr. Amr? Actually, rhyming is the correspondence of sound between words or endings of words, especially when these are used at the ends of lines of poetry. Like what? Like when I say rat dad, like when I say swim and Tim in two different lines. So this is what we call the rhyme or the rhyming scheme. We have something which is called rhythm as well. Okay, the rhythm of a piece of poetry determined by the number of length of feet in a line. So sometimes we have something which is called a rhythmic meter and so on. So we will have this part only of the presentation speaking about what is poetry, and I'd like you to watch a video speaking about the word poetry, which will help you definitely understand what is poetry. I will stop the camera in order to let you watch the whole screen of this video. Let's go on and see what is.
What is poetry? Poetry is a piece of writing written by an author called a poet. But what is the purpose of poetry? A poem is written using rhythm, rhyme, and other artistic language to show feelings and emotions. It's often short, but some poets write long poems too. Rhythm and rhyme are a part of many poems. Rhythm is the beat or sound pattern of a poem. Lots of poets use repetition and similar word sounds to create the beat or rhythm. Here's an example. A candy bar, a piece of cake, a lollipop, a chocolate shake. Many poems that have rhythm also have rhyme. Rhyme is having the same sound at the end of two or more words, like bike, hike, and rad, dad. Our poem from earlier has rhyme with the words cake and shake, and it makes me feel hungry. Another Another common element of poetry is alliteration. Alliteration is when the consonant sound is repeated at the beginning of words. Like Tracy the tiger made a terrifying sound. There are many types of poems that poets write. Some common poems are acrostic, couplet, haiku, limerick, narrative, free verse, humorous, and lyrical. A narrative poem tells a story. There are characters, problems, solutions, and a beginning, middle, and end. Free verse poetry doesn't follow a pattern. You won't see rhythm or rhyme in these poems. Humorous poems are funny, silly, and make us laugh. Lyrical poems express feelings and emotions. They're sometimes sing-songy with their rhythm. Let's look at an example. I have a little frog. His name is Tiny Tim. I put him in the bathtub to see if he could swim. He drank up all the water and gobbled up the soap. And when he tried to talk, he had a bubble in his throat. Let's look for some poetry elements in this humorous poem. Here we see rhyme, rhythm, alliteration, and a character. We know that a poem is written by a poet using rhythm, rhyme, and other artistic language to show feelings and emotions. Poems are usually short, but they can be long too. Listen for descriptions and decide how the poem makes you feel. It could be silly, or sad, or even glad.
Okay, back to our lesson again. What is poetry? As you see now, we spoke about poetry and we spoke about the figures of speech. And as you see now, we also spoke about some of the figures of speech in this presentation. Most of the figures of speech are known for everybody of us, and we had many tests and quizzes before about them. So why are the figures of speech? Actually, the figures of speech are very important because, as you know, they focus on making the difference between poetry and, for example, fiction and non-fictional stories and novels and even drama, the plays like Christmas Carol, as we had before. Okay, Mr. Amr, can you please tell us some of the figures of speech? Yes, I will give you a hint of the figures of speech as you see in this presentation. Figures of speech, what does it mean? Figures of speech are methods of using language in non-literal ways. Like what? Like you are my earth and all that earth implies, the gravity that Bolus may in space. To the man I married, Angelina, am glorious. So this is what we mean by figures of speech. The language itself is not easy. The first thing of the figures of speech is the simile. What is the simile? The simile is a figure of speech that directly compares two things through use the use of some connective words like what? Like the word like the word as, like the word then, and sometimes words like resembles. But actually, the simile in the poetry focuses on the word like, unlike, or the word as. Okay, so here the example, when we speak literally, literal means no figures of speech. Like when I say he runs fast, this is a normal sentence, a literal sentence. Actually, he runs fast. But if I use a simile here, I will say he runs like lightning. So he runs like lightning means that I am here speaking or using a figure of speech which is simile. Another figure of speech which is very important to us is the word metaphor. What is metaphor? Metaphor is a figure of speech that describes a subject by directly comparing it to another unrelated object without the use of connective words. So I'm speaking about something, but without using the word as, the word unlike, the word like. Literal, you make me happy. This is a literal sentence, a normal sentence. But if I want to use metaphor, I will say you are the music in me. You are the music in me. Actually, he is not a music. He's a human being. So when I say you are the music in me, it actually means that I use metaphor. Personification. What is personification? Personification is the figure of speech by which I or which inanimate objects are given human attributes. Inanimate means things, objects, animals, birds, anything that is not human being. And we give him or this thing a human attribute. Like when I say the flowers are singing and dancing, actually they are not singing, they are not dancing. Give me a literal sentence that I can use in personification. Literally, I can say the wind causes the leaves to move. The wind causes the leaves of the tree to move. This is a literal sentence. But what if I want to use personification here? I would give the leaves some of the attributes of human beings, like saying the wind flirts with the leaves. So here I gave the wind a kind of a human attribute. Flirt means say good words, or or flatter, something like making flattery, or praised or praises the leaves. So the wind flirts with the leaves. Actually, this means that they are like saying good words to each other. The wind is inanimate, and the leaves also are inanimate as well. So here we made personification like when William Wordsworth said about the daffodils glancing and dancing in the breeze. Dancing in the breeze. Do the flowers dance? No, actually, I gave the flowers attributes of human beings, and this is what we call personification. Irony. Irony is loosely defined as the use of words to convey a meaning opposite to that which is truly intended. Like when I say you're smart, but I mean that you are totally stupid. Okay, this is what we call irony. We have three types of irony: verbal irony, dramatic irony, and situational irony. The verbal irony, when the speaker means one thing but says another. You wanted to say you are a moron, but you said you what an intelligent guy you really are. So this is a kind of irony, saying what I don't mean, I mean the opposite. Dramatic irony used in narratives, so the situation when the heroes, characters aren't aware of circumstances or conditions only known to viewers. And the situational irony happens, number one, when people enter into conflicting situations, or when they get results far from what they expected. So when, for example, I failed the exam, so I say, what a smart man I am. So actually, this is irony because I really failed the exam. So I make irony of myself because I expected to succeed, but I didn't do so. We use in poetry the verbal irony, the verbal or direct way of irony. So this is irony. If you look at this um, plate, you will find it looks like lungs, and this and people or smokers are using to throw their cigarette ash in the plate, which looks like lungs. This is irony. It's a fine example. What else? This is very important. Hyperbole. Hyperbole is a figure of speech used to express exaggeration. Like when I say I ate 1 million sandwiches. Actually, this is impossible. But this means that I ate a lot. And this means, or this gives the listener the implementation or the feeling that I am like a man who likes food so much. Okay, so when I use hyperbole, which is a figure of speech that is used to express exaggeration, I already express something that is impossible with high numbers, or for example, with something that couldn't be believed, unbelievable. Literally, I can say I'm hungry. This is a literal sentence, a sentence that expresses what I feel already. But when I use hyperbole, I will say, get dinner ready because I can eat a horse already. Actually, I can't eat a horse. But when I said so, I used hyperbole. Okay, this is another thing. Sometimes simile is used to express hyperbole. His feet are as big as a cruise ship. Actually, this is simile, and in the same time, it's hyperbole. I will stop the share in this point because I'd like you to watch a video which is very important about about the figures of speech, and also I'd like you to watch a video about onomatopoeia, because it's very important part of this presentation or this session. It is not mentioned in the presentation we already watched, and I'd like everybody to pay attention to what you're going to hear in this video to exactly define the word onomatopoeia, which is very, very simple, and we will find it a lot in our poems. Let's watch this video. Listen carefully. Sorry, I stopped. Crash back. Just to make sure that the sound is on. Yes, the sound is on. Thank you for your patience. Crash, bash, boom, pow. What was that sound? Rumble, growl, slurp, smack. Did you hear that? What's that? Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. Oink, neigh, woof, meow. What was that sound? Slap, flick, swish, whack. Did you hear that? What's that? Onomatopoeia. Their words imitate sounds. Listen, they are all around. Sniff, cough, chew, ow. What was that sound? Vroom, honk, screech, crack. Did you hear that? What's that? Onomatopoeia. What's that? Onomatopoeia. What's that? Onomatopoeia. What's that? Onomatopoeia. So if we go back in the video, we will find that onomatopoeia are words that show what onomatopoeia are words that show or imitate the sounds of anything around us in the world. Telephones, animals, even the wind, the thunder, the lightning, anything in the world has a voice. So when you write this sound or this voice, you are making or you are figuring onomatopoeia. 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 So repeat it after me. Onomatopoeia. 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 It's a word that represents what? Represents something that actually imitate the sound or the voice of anything around us. I would like you to watch the video again because it is very important and it is very interesting. Crash, bash, boom, pow. What was that sound? Rumble, growl, slurp, smack. Did you
Onomatopoeia. Oink, nay, woof, meow. What was that sound? Slap, flick, swoosh, whack. Did you hear that? What's that? Onomatopoeia. Their words imitate sounds.
I want you to pay attention to this definition. They are words that imitate sounds. Words that we use or we write in English or in poetry actually in order to imitate, to make sounds look like. So when you read them, you understand that a sheep is speaking here, or a cat is speaking, or a dog is speaking. Making the sounds of such things is called onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia, as she is saying in this video. Continue.
Listen, they are all around. Sniff, cough, chew, ow. What was that sound? Vroom, honk, screech, crack. Did you hear that? What's that? Onomatopoeia. What's that? Onomatopoeia. What's that? Onomatopoeia. What's that? Onomatopoeia.
Okay, thank you for listening. This is the end of our lesson today. Inshallah, next session we will have something about the rhyme scheme, and we will start the poem that we will have in the beginning of this quarter. I hope you understand everything, and if you have any questions, please don't um, don't hesitate. Feel free to send me on Idea page, and I will answer directly what you want to know. Now it's the end of my session. Thank you so much for listening again, and see you tomorrow, inshallah, or on Sunday. I'm sorry. See you on Sunday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.